One buzzword you might hear in the fashion industry right now is circularity. But what does it mean? Well, according to Vogue, it refers to a system in which all garments can be reused, recycled, or returned to Earth, reducing the hugely damaging impact on the fashion industry that it has on the planet. Now, that all sounds wonderful, but is it realistic? Here to deep dive with me on the topic, stylist and author Heather Newberger. How you doing, Heather?
I'm doing well, Natalie. How are you doing today?
Good to see you again. All right, so a few years ago, we might not have been something that consumers thought about when it came to this. Can you talk about how shoppers are so different now as they look at their own environmental footprint?
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting when we're talking about environmental footprint because more than ever, people are so interested in sort of what it means to kind of take that time out of their day to really invest in products and in people who are going to make our environment a better place. We're looking at climate change bills. We're looking at all the different things that are important to us. So this is really something that people can kind of get their fingers on and really engage with, which is one of the reasons why sustainable ethics practices in fashion has become such a popular topic.
It really has. We have things like ThredUp and Rent the Runway where you can do stuff reusable, but there are critics of circular fashion that say those brands, they're just using the buzzword, but they're not really doing anything about it. They have been accused of greenwashing. Can you explain what that is?
Well, the interesting thing is that actually companies like Rent the Runway, they're doing a better thing where they're sort of like washing clothes, taking it up. I'm actually a big fan of kind of some of their practices.
Yeah.
But I will say there are a lot of companies who I'm not such a fan and who really are doing this thing, quote unquote, called greenwashing, which is taking the concept of, sustainable ethics in fashion and then kind of just pretending as though they're really abiding by them, but not necessarily taking the right steps to practice what they preach.
All right, so it's clear the industry as a whole, they kind of need to turn in a bit of a greener direction. Now, one way is to completely rethink fabric in general. So what are some sustainable materials and some other brands that you might like?
Well, something that I think is really interesting is this fabric called Tencel that's coming out. And I could be mispronouncing that in every possible way, but that's the way it looks to me. But what I think was great about Tencel is it uses a plant fiber that uses, less energy, less water than cotton, and it's also biodegradable. So when you're engaging with a fabric like Tencel, you're not necessarily adding to landfills just as much as you might be if you're buying another fast fashion garment. That said, I'm so happy to see companies like Everlane and Levi's, two that I really enjoy myself, that are really taking Tencel and already bringing it into their practices. That said, H&M is also doing the same thing. So is Victoria's Secret. So it's wonderful to see these bigger brands actually embracing fabrics that are going to be more helpful for people overall and for our landfills.
Yeah, it's actually surprising to me to hear you say that these bigger brands, these mainstream brands are actually going in that direction. So as consumers who are conscious of this and as buyers out there, how can we push real circularity or more green shopping?
Well, I think it's always important to start in your closet. Go shopping with the things you already have. There's already probably so many things in your closet that you love that you've just kind of forgotten about. But even if you are to go in your closet and not really see things that you love, I would say, organize something with your friends. Do a clothing swap. Take those things that aren't your favorite, bring them over to your buddies and see if you guys can kind of trade back and forth because, one man's trash might be another man's treasure. At the same time, I would also say vintage and thrift stores are great opportunities to, again, keep that circularity moving as opposed to bringing in new fabrics. But ultimately, if you want to get new pieces, I say check out the sort of ethics on the website of the company you're looking at and see if they also engage in sustainable and circular processes.
Listen, huge fan of the clothing swap. I've gotten some of my best items from friends that they've either outgrown it or they just don't think it looks good on them. And then you pick it up and it has a whole new life in your closet. I'm a huge fan of that.
Me too, Natalie. I think it's super great. And it's something that, you never know what you're going to find at a clothing swap. And I have so many pieces myself of, friends and friends of friends that I wear on a daily basis.
Highly recommend it. All right, Heather, thank you for joining us again this week, stylist and author. You can also go get her book, How to Date Your Wardrobe. Don't forget about that, or follow her right there on Instagram at Heather Newberger.